Hello and welcome to the new series of Drishti IAS. I am Pooja, and in this segment today, as you can take a hint from the picture that I have behind me, we are going to discuss about Droupadi Murmu, who is of course set to become, looking at the numbers that are in favor of BJP, who is set to become the first tribal candidate to be elected as the President of India. Tribal and of course woman. The message is loud and clear. That means it is showing that India is developed enough to forward its candidate, who is a tribe which belongs to a very important tribe, the Santhal tribe, and that is why this topic is of extreme significance. Let us first of all look at these many topics that we are going to discuss. Of course, the most of the emphasis that we are going to put in this particular segment will be on a Santhal community, previous significant precedents, and the message, of course, about Droupadi Murmu. Not a lot about the President of India, because we have discussed about it in detail in one of our news segments only. So we will provide you with the link in the description box. So of course, let us begin with the first topic, that Droupadi Murmu is set to become or elected the first tribal woman President of India. Before her, we have our first woman President, Srimati Pratibha Patil ji, and she was a UPA candidate. Now this has sprang up as a surprise because nobody was did not have any sort of hint about her coming to the fore when it comes to the election of president. Although in 2017 her name was of course doing roundabouts when it came to the presidential elections, but President Ramnath Kovind made the cut. Now Yashwant Sinha is the opposition's candidate for the upcoming elections, the presidential elections, and of course, looking at the numbers of BJP, we can see that it is quite a possibility that Droupadi Murmu will write history. Okay, so let us move on and talk about her a bit. Droupadi Murmu, she is a former Jharkhand governor, and she will be the first person from Odisha to become the president if it happens, if she wins the elections, and also the first tribal woman to occupy the top constitutional post if she is elected. Also, her nature comes as very approachable. When she was the governor of Jharkhand, people remember her as affable, approachable, very nice person. She belongs to Mayurbhanj of Odisha. And of course, if we talk about Droupadi Murmu, she is from a very important tribe, the Santhal tribe or Santhal tribe. It might be ringing certain bells. Santhal rebellion, remember? So let us move on and talk about the, first of all, the precedents sections are important because match the following can come. The President of India is defined under Part 5, the Union, along with the Parliament and the President, then Prime Minister, Vice President and Attorney General. These are a part of the Union. Chapter 1, Executive, deals with it. Sometimes it can happen chapter or the part can also be asked. Article 52 talks about the President of India, that there shall be a President of India. 53 says about the executive power of the Union. 54 says election of the President. Article 56 tells us about term of office of the President. 57, eligibility for re-election if it is needed. Article 58, qualifications for election as a President. And Article 62, it talks about the time of holding election to fill vacancy in the office of President and the term of office or President elected to fill casual vacancies. Now see, this is one thing that of course, what do we have to know here is, before the vacancy arises, before that only presidential elections have to be completed, and that is why in the upcoming couple of days we will see our presidential elections. Moving on, let's talk about Santhal community, or also known as Santhal or Manjhi community. It is basically an ethnic group of Eastern India numbering well over 5 million at the turn of 21st century. Highest concentrations can be found in Bihar, Jharkhand, West Bengal, Odisha and eastern part of the country basically, and some 2 lakh also live in Bangladesh. So if questions arises with respect to Santhali's community concentration, if it is outside India or not, it is Bangladesh, and more than 10,000 are in Nepal as well. The language is Santhali, which is a dialect of Kherwari, and it is basically a Munda language, which is Austro-Asiatic language. Moving on, if we talk about the Santhal rebellion, Siddhu and Kanhu, these were the leaders, these brothers, Sidhu and Kanhu Murmu, were the brothers who led the Santhal rebellion against the British. And you see Hemant Soren, who is the chief minister of Jharkhand, he paid tributes to the Santhal rebellion leaders Sidhu and Kanhu Murmu. Okay, moving on, if we talk about the status of scheduled tribes in India, who are scheduled tribes? This particular definition is given in the Constitution in Article 366, Clause 25. Read it out, I am moving away. Okay, it defines scheduled tribe as such tribes or tribal communities or parts of or groups within such tribe or tribal communities as are deemed under Article 342 to be scheduled tribe for the purpose of the Constitution. Basically, 342 talks about who all can be categorized as scheduled tribe. The procedure needs to be followed in the matter of specification of scheduled tribe. It is given in Article 342. 366 Clause 25 and 342 to be remembered. Moving on, if we talk about the scheduled tribes of particular states, it's given here the date of notification for putting scheduled tribes in certain state was 6/9/1950. The Constitution Schedule Order of 1950, it talks about the names of states and union territories for which application is there for scheduled tribe categorization. Andhra Pradesh, Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Bihar, Gujarat, Goa, Himachal Pradesh, Karnataka, Kerala, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Manipur, Mizoram, Meghalaya, Odisha. Okay, also Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu, Tripura and West Bengal. These are trivial information that of course needs to be in your mind. So message is loud and clear. Party which is forwarding a candidate which belongs to a tribe, a very, very, very important tribe, cannot emphasize enough, and a woman. After so long we will see a woman president. And of course, as the numbers are in favor of BJP right now, there is a strong chance that she will become the president. Okay, and she was the first woman, when I'm talking about her career, which was earlier, she was the first woman and tribal leader from Odisha to be appointed as governor of any state, and she served in that state from 2015 to 2021. What is so special about this? Speciality is she has been the first governor to complete her entire term, and she has had numbers in her favor earlier as well. When she was in MLA, when she contested elections as well, she was very affable back then as well. The first governor to complete the term in the state, that I have already told you. And of course, assembly elections, they are pending. Upcoming elections are there in the state of Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh. So Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Gujarat and Chhattisgarh have huge tribal population concentration. So it of course has the key. This will serve as a key to the elections of those states as well. And of course, Bharatiya Tribal Party, which is a very influential, although it is small country, right, but very influential party in Rajasthan. Such parties can also, on this particular matter, that our next president is going to be a tribal leader, they will give support to the current government in that case. So a very few opposition, in fact many oppositions, people who are belonging to the opposition are not opposing her election as a president. So this is one thing that something that we have to know. Now of course, if we talk about previous presidents who hold a huge significance in the history of presidential elections in India, Ramnath Kovind has to be, President Ramnath Kovind has to find a mention. He is the former Bihar governor, second Dalit, and the first BJP member to be elected as the president. First BJP member to be elected as the president. He was a BJP member. Moving on, Pratibha Patil, the first woman to be elected as the president. She was a candidate. From the UPA government. Moving on, if we talk about the next one, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, this was such a huge surprise. He was, of course, a BJP candidate, BJP supported candidate. BJP is full of surprises when it comes to letting out their list of nominees for presidential candidates. First scientist to become the president of India. Dr. Zakir Hussain, the first Muslim to become the president of India. Also, he has been very instrumental in the formation of Aligarh University, of course. And if we talk about his demise, it was during the office. He died during the office. Moving on, if we talk about Dr. K.R. Narayanan, he became the first Dalit. Second Dalit is President Ramnath Kovind, the first Dalit and a journalist to become the President of India. And he was earlier a Vice President, and as a journalist, he was related to many newspapers like the Times of India, the Hindu. He was also an IFS officer. So, of course, our country is full of surprises. Now, Chief Justice of India, Hidayatullah ji, he has never been the President, but of course, the Vice President, Muhammad Hidayatullah. So, these are certain very significant mentions that I thought you must need to know. Now, prelims based question. This is the question that I'm giving. I'm also announcing the names of those who have answered my last question correctly. Which of the following articles of the Indian Constitution deal with the time of holding elections to fill vacancy in the office of President? 56, 58, 61, 62. Okay, so answer this question correctly. Those of you who have answered my last question can stay. Otherwise, anybody who has not done so can move on with another things. So let me bear with me a moment. I'm announcing the names of those who have answered it correctly, answered the last question correctly. You can also, if you want to, give constructive feedback for the betterment of the program. I will make sure that I take all of your feedback seriously. And yes, it was, I guess, the question was on SETI. Yes, SETI hydroelectric. Because there are too many comments, I will try to read the comments of those who have answered it earliest. The correct answer is B. Okay, and Mini has answered it correctly. Then Abdul has answered it correctly. Bhup Singh Yadav has answered it correctly. Bhargavi has answered it correctly. And Alok Deep has answered it correctly. 2, I guess you wanted to say the second option, right? Moving on. Pallavi has answered it correctly. Saad Khan, no, he hasn't answered at all. Medha has answered it correctly. Vishal has answered it correctly. Then many of you have answered it incorrectly as well, not an issue. You can look at the question again. Rupali Gupta has answered it correctly. Then Gayatri has answered it correctly. Divagar answered correctly. Raghav and Jay Prakash has answered it correctly. Yes, Harish has answered it correctly. Shifa, Kiranba, and Shubhalakshmi has answered it correctly. Okay, then we also have Archana answering it correctly. Then Umesh has answered it correctly. Aditya has answered it correctly. Raja Soni has answered it correctly. Aman and Tanbih has written a very long answer, but he has not given which answer he wants to say. Not an issue. Thank you so much all for watching. Answer this question correctly. I will take your name in the next segment as well. Thank you.